Hi, welcome to the new season of O'Neill Rabbithole. This year we have two new co-hosts. Their names are Thomas.
Hi, I'm Thomas.
And Lina.
Hello.
To start off the new episode, we are going to be talking about some biology and the mathematical side as well as the physics side and, well, just the plain old biology side. To kick us off, we have Thomas here who's been doing quite a bit of research on what, Thomas?
So there's the desert rain frog, and they're pretty cool because they sound like little squeak toys. They're like little baseball-sized frogs, and their war cry or their croak defense mechanism sounds like the squeak of a dog toy, and it's very unscary to humans, I guess. They sound sort of adorable and cute. They're kind of funny.
Does that mean that they are scary to...
I guess to animals, yeah, but not to us. I don't know. They're kind of funny though. A pet would be cool. I like frogs.
I like frogs too.
I'm quite a fan of frogs. I think they're really cool because they got that. They're really. I like their
toe pads.
I don't know.
Frogliness.
I don't know, frogliness. I think they're really unique in that sense. So I think that's really cool.
You know, whoever invented the word frog was very correct, because if you look at those things definitely look like the word they're supposed to be. They look like frogs.
Yeah.
Like, even if I was the person inventing the word frogs, I'd be like, those things look like frogs.
I don't know if I would be, I don't know if I'd have I don't know if I would be good enough to come up with the word frog. You know? I'd look at it and I'd go like, wow, I don't even know what to call these. And then someone calls them frogs, I'm like, whoa. You know?
And then there's some frogs that are like violent too. Like there's the Wolverine Frog. Well, that's its nickname. I forget its real name, but the Wolverine Frog's named after the Marvel character. Because like the Marvel character, he has his claws come out of his knuckles. When the frog gets threatened or angry, he forces his bones through his skin like the Marvel character, and uses it like frog claws against whoever might attack him.
That's gotta be the coolest thing I've ever heard about a frog.
That's like terrifying,
And
though.
I think he's got like little hairs coming out the side of his body too.
Wow.
Why?
I don't know.
Wow.
Just
Why? What's the point of the hairs, though?
I'm not 100% sure. I forget why, but I'll have to check it out.
What's the point of human hairs?
For warmth.
Well, that's like evolution and everything. It's not really.
Maybe that's the point of the frog hairs too.
You think? For warmth?
Probably.
Yeah,
Frogs
get cold, you know?
Do they?
There's the frog species that, like, a bunch of them, when they get cold, they become like an ice cube.
Yeah.
And then in the winter they freeze. They lower their heartbeat till like it almost stops. I think some species do stop, so they're basically dead for a bit. And then in the spring they release some chemical in their body as they start to warm up that our biology teacher was talking about this. They mix it with their blood and it makes like antifreeze, and it unfreezes and thaws their body back to like regular levels because they're cold-blooded.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. How you think we could use like frog antifreeze as like a natural source of antifreeze?
No.
That'd be pretty sweet. Why not?
I don't think that's how that works.
Yeah,
Pretty sure that's not how that works.
Yeah, what if we spliced it with human DNA and made like people who are immune to the cold?
Yeah.
Oh.
That'd be cool, but
Or
probably unethical.
we could just give humans extra hair.
That's true.
We could even make the hair something that you could take on and off. And we could make the hair out of like cool new synthetic products like wool or plastic.
I see.
Yeah. And we could make it so you could like unzip the hair that you're putting on.
No, that's so gross. Like, just on a real note, that's so gross.
Are you saying like a gorilla suit or something?
I'm saying we already did that, and it's called clothes.
Oh.
I was like, you know.
Oh,
like,
I thought.
Oh, you thought I meant like to actually like make hair.
The use of the word hair.
Well, that's what clothes are. You know, it's like hair that you put on.
Well, not cotton.
Not really.
Cotton, yeah, it's like hair that you're putting on.
Cotton's
like that,
plant.
No, but
it's fake hair. It's fake hair.
That's true.
You know. Yeah.
I'm trying.
I guess if you like if you look at it, like a lot of human inventions are just better ways of things that like
already exist.
Right, that like animals already do. We just do it but better.
Have you seen the process of how they make water bottles into shirts?
No, I haven't.
No.
It's pretty cool. They like first they shred it up into little thin spaghetti like strips or pasta. And then from there they grind it up and then they spin it, or like I forget the exact process, but they do something to it that gets it into this thin wire, and then it's almost like thread, and then they can make it into t-shirts and everything. I think I have a couple t-shirts made from water bottle.
That's actually cool. Yeah.
And so they're pretty comfy. They're better than you'd think.
Yeah.
Do they feel any different, or do they feel kind of the same?
They feel kind of the same, but you can definitely feel it's something more synthetic and like made of a different material.
Right.
But you never realize it was a water bottle beforehand if you didn't know.
Yeah. There's like one of my friends was doing something where it's like I don't know if you guys heard about it, but it's like you take a trash bag and you like make it into like a dress or something. So kind of adding on to like the whole like water bottle thing. I think that's so cool. The fact that we can just kind of do that and make it into like clothes that you can wear. You know? You
could say that it's a pretty trashy dress.
That's so bad. No. Don't. No. It's so bad. I'm not laughing, by the way. That's not a laugh. It's not real.
What's it?
I'm gonna add in a laugh track in post.
Don't.
Most laugh tracks were recorded in like the 20s or the 30s or the 40s. I don't know, in that time range. So they're all really old people laughing. I don't know why they just don't record new laugh tracks.
Because new shows aren't funny.
like Friends.
Yeah, exactly. Like, have you seen the like you take Friends, but then you remove the laugh track, and not a single joke that they make works without the laugh track. Like every single joke in the entire show needs the laugh track to be funny. It's so weird.
I forget. I could be wrong about this, but I think there was a vote for the most unfunny comedy show, and the most unfunny show was The Big Bang Theory.
It's not funny.
Yeah,
but
not.
Whenever I hear Bazinga, I think it's funny just because. Why would that be someone's catchphrase? Is just Bazinga? That's the whole show. That's the catchphrase of the main character. It's supposed to be. It's so unfunny that it's funny to me. But I don't know.
Big Bang Theory is a disgrace. I'll say this. It is a disgrace to the idea of popular science. Because there are so many cool ideas that the Big Bang Theory could have done with the idea of science plus comedy. And they did absolutely none of it. Like, 1 out of every 12 episodes will even mention what any of them are doing for their work, and it'll be like an offhand, like, I'm doing this thing, isn't that funny, because that's what nerds do. And it's like, come on, like like science can actually be interesting, and it can actually be fun, but not if your main character just has Bazinga as his catchphrase. Like, you gotta do something different, you know.
There's on the Big Bang Theory, I know a couple of the cast members or writers do have their PhDs, but like Colby was saying, they don't really use it very well. Same thing with Futurama. Futurama had like 11 people with PhDs on their writing team for science and whatnot on the show, but that's also just a sort of comedy show, not really science-based.
Yeah. I'll say Futurama. I've never really watched it, but I think Futurama does philosophy better than like Big Bang Theory. Obviously, it doesn't do philosophy. But like Futurama sometimes has very like interesting episodes in terms of the concept, at least. Whether or not they use it very well, but their concept can be pretty cool sometimes. Sure.
There's this one show I know, and all the science in the show is like super accurate. I've seen videos on YouTube all the time where even the Mythbusters had watched, or some of the previous Mythbusters cast watched the show, and they went over how accurate the science is in the show, like all the materials and the procedures, and how factual and physically possible the experiments in the show were.
That's pretty cool.
But I forget the show name. I'll have to look it up. But it was like it was a fiction show, but it was I guess there was realistic elements in the fiction, like all the science was realistic, but it was obviously just a made-up story.
I feel like it's kind of difficult to find that like in between balance of like between like, okay, this is like science and this is like real science and all that, and then also balance out like the comedy or like the other aspect that kind of keeps audience intrigued or like makes the audience like more broad. I feel like it's kind of, most shows have a difficult time kind of reaching that point, which is kind of sad, but you know, once that happens, it can be interesting, you know. But
yeah, especially since like the attention span of everyone in society has been getting shorter and shorter.
Right.
So now whenever you make a TV show or a movie, it feels like they have to cram in a joke every single second,
right,
just to try and keep the attention of the people.
And that kind of thing, it makes me so angry because it makes it so that like you see like these TikTok science channels or TikTok science pages where their job is like, their whole page is dedicated to math and science, and you think, okay, so 60-second quick math science lessons, cool, talk about cool things, cool developments in physics. No, there's this guy, I don't remember his name, and even if I did, I wouldn't say it because he does not deserve views. Like, he's that bad. He sits there and he says things like, time isn't real. And then he's like, you heard me right. Albert Einstein proved in 1917 that time, dramatic pause, doesn't exist. Now, I know what you might be thinking, like stuff like that. It's just stuff that's like blatantly untrue.
Yeah, sort of like clickbaity.
Yeah.
it's so saturated though. It's like really terrible, but it also could be like satire as well.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't?
Because
Oh.
somebody said like he was trying to talk about like philosophy, and somebody was like, I bet you've never opened a philosophy book in your life. And he made a comeback video to it where he showed that he had a bunch of philosophy books. Somebody zoomed in and proved that not a single one of those books had their spine broken.
Oh, really?
So he hadn't actually read any of the books, and he got like pissed off at him. Can I say that?
They got very angry at him.
Very mad.
They were very. It was a no-no. Yeah.
What's it? Speaking of time, the other day I got into. I was talking with an online buddy about this book and Interstellar. We were talking about the flow of time, both in the book and Interstellar, and how unique it is, and the real life implications of it, and if that is really possible. Like, because in Interstellar they light travel, or they go through the wormhole, which bends time, and then they're on a different planet with a different gravitational pull and whatnot. So 1 hour on the planet is 7 years on Earth. So realistically, I think that'd be very cool, but I don't know, the whole concept's it's both, I don't know, it's complex to understand. I still sort of...
Yeah, I could talk about it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so basically the idea with like special relativity is that it starts with this idea, right, that the speed of light is constant, and that the speed of light never changes, right? And this is different to the idea of classical relativity, where everything's speed changes relative to another person, right? If you are in a car, and the car is driving 60 miles per hour, obviously the car is traveling 60 miles per hour relative to somebody that's standing on the side of the road. But two people that are both inside of the car, even though they're both traveling 60 miles an hour to each other, like if you looked over at them, it doesn't look like they're moving, right? It looks like they're just staying still. And that's actually a really important concept in physics, this idea that relative to the person, the other person isn't moving. But relative to outside the car, right, the car itself is moving 60 miles an hour, and the people inside of it technically are, right? And even if you go farther out than that, the Earth is spinning something like 60,000 kilometers an hour, but we don't feel that. So relative to, say, the inertial frame, right, of reference, relative to the idea that nothing's moving, we're moving thousands and thousands of kilometers an hour, but relative to us, we're not moving at all, right? Right now, as we sit in this classroom recording the video, we're not moving, but we are, right? So it all depends on your frame of reference. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No, that makes sense.
So the idea that Einstein came up with, and this was a brilliant idea, was that the speed of light doesn't change. No matter when you measure it, the speed of light is the same. And that actually doesn't change even if you are moving. So if you measure, I think it's 300 meters a second, we'll go with that. So if you're sitting still and you shine a flashlight, that light is traveling 300 meters a second, right, relative to you. But somebody that's also moving next to you, as you shine that flashlight, from their perspective, it's still moving 300 meters a second to them too. Which doesn't really make sense, because you'd think that if they were moving along with it, then relative to them, the light would be slower, because they would be catching up to the light. But that's actually not true. The light is still going the same speed to them. So it's like, how do you do this and not derive some sort of contradiction, right? How can the light be going the same speed to both of these people, and yet this person is traveling also at a different speed, right? Because if the light is traveling at a different speed to both people, that should mean that both people are not moving, but actually both people are moving, right? So clearly there's some kind of difference. There's something else that's changing, and what's really incredible is that it's actually time itself which is changing to compensate for this thing. So 300 meters a second for the person that's not moving might mean one thing, and 300 meters a second for the person that is moving, it's a different, their seconds are a different length. Their seconds grow longer relative to the other person. And so it's the idea that instead of just speed being relative, now it's time that's becoming relative in light of the speed being constant.
Okay.
So with normal things, right, if I shine a flashlight right now and you start running down the hallway, we're not going to notice a difference. But if you're going 299 meters a second, or we'll say 200 meters a second, right, down the hallway, which is incredibly fast, right, blazingly quick, the idea is then, well, now it's getting to the point where you can start to notice it, where it's only taken, let's say I shine the light for 5 seconds. It took 5 seconds for that light to reach wherever it was going. But to you, and you were going, it took 5 seconds for the light to reach where it was going for you too. But the idea is time is slowing down a lot for you. So 5 seconds to you is not 5 seconds to me. And for me, it looks like it's taking you hundreds of years even to get to where you're trying to go. Just because you're traveling so fast that it's starting to distort things around you. And that's basically the premise of it. And the two main things that distort this are speed and mass, which is why in Interstellar you have a planet or the black hole, and it's this like, 1 hour here is 7 years on Earth. That's the idea, is that gravity is changing time on this planet and slowing down time so that it feels like things are going normally here, but from an outside perspective, it's taking really long for everything to happen. And that's why if Thomas was going 200 meters per second down a hallway, by the time he gets back to me, I'm going to be long dead. But he is still going to be like a baby.
All of the talk about like astronomical distances makes me think about how both small and large we are, taking in account to like the universe. Like you can zoom in and zoom in and zoom in, and you'll get to the cells, and you'll get to the molecules, and then you'll get to the atoms. You get to the atoms, you get to the quarks, and then even there we're finding new stuff.
Yeah.
And so like it's infinitely small, but then you zoom out and it's infinitely large as well. So it's just crazy to think about that. We're just on this rock going however many miles an hour. We're spinning, we're both moving through space. I don't know. It's just weird to think about how large it is. And I don't think, because like you can imagine a fishbowl or something as like a container for something. But the thing is, we don't know if the universe is in a container, so let's just assume it's not. So we don't know the limits of how far. I don't know. So it's just weird to think we're infinitely small.
You could get into if you look at it in a more mathematical way. So the idea of a container you were talking about, it's actually it's interesting that it could be true that the universe has a container, right? Or it could be true that it doesn't have a container and that it's infinitely large in every direction. But there's actually a third option, and it's that there's no container, but the universe is still finite. And the way that it was explained to me was, if you were an ant and you were living on the Earth, right? And ants can't jump. They can only really move in two directions, right? They can move forward, backward, and they can move left, right? And so to them, the universe is two-dimensional, right? They can only move forward, backward, and left and right. There's no real meaning to like a third dimension for them if they're just walking around the surface of the Earth, right? Ignoring like ant colonies and stuff, but an ant walking around on the surface of the Earth. So to the ant, this whole planet is 2D, right? Like the surface of the Earth is two-dimensional to them. There's no such thing as, oh, this Earth is this wide, this deep, right? That doesn't really have meaning to them. So this Earth is a 2D object, and yet an ant walking forever in a direction is never going to hit a wall, right? They're not going to hit the ice wall or something. They're going to get back to where they started. And so one of the ideas is that if we got into a rocket ship and blasted off for millions of years at past the speed of light or something, what if instead of hitting a wall or going forward outwards for infinity, what if we looped back to where we started? Because the Earth is, instead of being a two-dimensional sphere like an ant would see crawling on Earth, where it looks like it's two dimensions, what if we were on a three-dimensional sphere, where if we go any direction, we end up back where we were, but in 3 dimensions instead of 2.
Is that the universe is a donut theory?
Not a donut. It can actually just be, it's called a 3-sphere, although donut would work it doesn't matter. But the point is, I I think in topology is what the math is. Lina's smiling right now because I'm always talking about topology, but it's called closed and bounded. Closed and bounded. So what meaning that there is no edge, right? There's no edge, meaning there's no wall that you're gonna run up against, but there's no it doesn't go on forever. It has some kind of finite volume. So that's the theory. It could be a donut, it could be a sphere, we don't know. And to our dismay, if it is a sphere, if it isn't flat, if the universe that is, we don't know, because we've taken measurements, and the measurements, as far as we can see, are very remarkably flat. They're very boring measurements, which means that if the universe is a sphere, it's a really, really big one.
So we were talking about the second and the third dimension. Yeah. Now I've seen arguments where the fourth dimension is time, but then the fourth dimension is also this.
Don't you say love?
Is this more complex idea? And every time I've watched a video or had it explained to me, my brain just melts. I can't.
So what's a dimension? Tell me that.
So
define that.
Dimension is sort of like the measurement. So if you're one-dimensional, you can only be measured in one way. You have zero width, but you have a length.
Right.
Two-dimensional, you have a length and a width.
Right.
Three-dimensional, you have a length, width, and height.
Right.
It can also work on like a coordinate plane, like your point and like the ant. The ant can move in X and Y forever. Humans, we can move X, Y, Z. We can go up and down and everything. We can jump. Yeah. But so, adding a fourth plane onto the universe, I don't know how that'd work, or how you could add a fourth measurement to something.
So it's a very interesting question to me, because it's actually really two questions in one, and the first one is. What does mathematics allow? And then the second one is, what is the actual state of the universe? And mathematics is very interesting in that you can have an infinite number of dimensions in math without anything being different. And it works just the same. So you could have 4, you could model it with 5, you could model it with 6, and it's just another number tacked onto the coordinate plane. Like if you look at like the coordinate, like XY, XYZ, XYZW. XYZWT, right? You can just keep tacking on coordinates, and you can actually, in a non-physical environment, you can model a lot of different things. That fourth dimension could be time, or it could be temperature. I've seen a lot of it is temperature sometimes, because, I mean, if you think about it, every single point in space has a temperature associated with it, and that temperature usually varies continuously. So you can think of it as a fourth output variable to these coordinate systems. So that's one answer to the question, which is a really boring answer, because it's basically just saying dimension is just another number tacked onto your model, which is really it doesn't inspire any cool visuals, but that's how mathematicians use it. It really takes away a lot of the mysticism and what's a dimension? It's nothing. It doesn't matter. It's just another tool, right? And so I guess the more interesting question is, are there more than 3 ways to move around your position in the universe, right? Are there more than 3 variables that are needed to describe where you are in relation to something? Which is, I mean, I guess we just don't know the answer to that question yet.
Yeah. One thing about temperature that I've never really liked the idea of is absolute zero. Like, you can get infinitely hot. There's like no limit to how hot something can get. As far as we know. But absolute zero, I just don't like the idea of there being a limit to how cold something can physically get. I don't know. I'd like to think there's negatives, but
You know what? Just for you, I'll create a new temperature system,
thank you.
and it'll be log based. It'll be. I'll call it Colby. It'll be represented with a C, and it'll be equal to log of Kelvin.
Isn't
And-
C already taken for temperature then? Yeah.
Celsius.
Celsius.
That's
yeah.
a thing. Sorry. Yeah, you gotta pick another letter for that.
What letter should I pick then, Lina?
I don't know. Why would it? Pick-
B. Cold B.
Wait, I'll do an L. I'll do an L.
Yeah, you should do enough. Good
I'll do an
idea.
L.
Good
L
idea.
for
L for Lina. So
L for log.
no, you're so mean. L for name it after me.
Okay, L for Lina. The temperature system is called Lina. Lina height. Lina. and it's log Celsius. Or log Kelvin, sorry. Because log scale takes something with a finite zero endpoint and it stretches that to infinity, to negative infinity. So just for you, boom, I solved it. Now
Thank
it goes
you.
down to negative infinity.
Done.
Yeah, we just ended absolute zero. For those of you who are still listening.
Yeah, all the absolute zero haters. Your problem now solved.
Yeah.
Done.
You're welcome. That'll be adopted soon, right?
What?
That'll be adopted, right?
Very soon, yes.
Yeah.
Scientifically.
We could petition it's called the International Science Consortium.
You know, I was just thinking though. I wonder how much real life stuff has influenced fantasy. Because I was looking around the room and I saw pictures and whatnot of what's it? It's Odyssey with the Cyclops, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about the origins of the Cyclops, and if you look into where the myth of Cyclops came from, it's actually the skull of a mammoth that they thought was a Cyclops because they have the tusks that look like teeth, and then they have a giant hole in the center of their head, and that's where their snout would have been, or their nose. But the people who invented it didn't know what that was because they didn't see a living mammoth, so they just assumed it was this huge one-eyed beast because it's a huge skull and there's a giant hole that looks like an eye socket. So
That reminds me of back in like pirate time, 1400s, 1500s. Or in medieval time, really. The myth of mermaids was manatees from far away, like sirens, manatees. They were supposed to be like the most beautiful women on earth, and they were manatees. So that's just a pretty image to think about while we're starting to wrap
Wasn't
this
that
up.
Christopher Columbus?
I was about to say,
Yes, it
yeah,
was
Columbus.
Christopher Columbus had a
push.
fantasy dream about them when he first found them.
Yeah.
That allowed.
So, right.
What a lovely topic to wrap up on.
Yeah.
But no, yeah.
So fun
The-
fact, by the way. Yeah.
I guess we'll say before we close out, just Lina, you have any more comments on anything we've said? Anything to wrap up what we've talked about
No.
in this supposedly biology themed podcast episode?
I think it was a great discussion. That's my comment. I had a fun time.
Yeah.
Well, we did a pretty good coming full circle. We ended up at
Back at manatees, yeah.
manatee biology. No, I thought this was pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I never had any pretenses this would really be about biology, but you know what? We did talk about frogs.
It did
so.
go on a bit of a crazy train through the middle there, but
Listen, as much as I like biology, I will always be a math and physics guy. So, it is what it is. But thank you guys for listening. If you've made it this far, if you haven't, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next episode.
if you've made it this far, comment your favorite SpongeBob character.
We'll be liking. Actually, will we be commenting back? I don't know. We'll see.
We can comment back.
We'll comment back. We'll see.
We'll comment back. Lina said it, so it has to be true.
It has to happen.
Goodbye, and we'll see you next week.